AITA for the email I sent to a teacher about her, you have to include everyone, rules, saying that was a dangerous lesson? My daughter is 12, I'm trying to teach her ways of creating and respecting her boundaries that are age appropriate. Teaching her that it's okay to say no to things she feels uncomfortable with. There is a boy in her class who keeps bothering her and her female friends at recess. I've encouraged her to go to me or her teacher when this happens. My daughter told me a few days ago that in class, the teacher had asked the kids to form groups of about 4 or 5. She had formed a group of 5 with some other girls, then the boy who had been giving her trouble at recess came over and said he was joining their group. Another girl said that they already have 5, and he should work with a group who only have 2 or 3 people. He said no because the teacher had said about 4 or 5. My daughter then said that they didn't want to work with him, and he should find another group. A few of the other girls agreed with her. He said that, you can't exclude me like that, it's against class rules, and she said she didn't care. I heard about this from my daughter first, and the way she talked about it, she had been firm but not unkind. But then I got an email from her teacher saying she wanted to call. She said there had been an incident at school where my daughter had excluded another child, and that wasn't allowed in her class, and she wanted me to have a talk with her about it. Her telling of events was the same as my daughter's. I felt proud of my daughter for her honesty. I sent her an email saying, "Dear Mrs. Teacher, I'm sorry, but that is not a lesson I feel comfortable teaching my daughter. She's at the age where she is already having to deal with unwanted attention, and I'm making a point to teach her that she does not have to be around anyone who makes her uncomfortable, and that a young lady is able to choose to spend time with people who make her feel respected. I understand you already are aware, boy has been behaving in ways that she feels uncomfortable with at recess, from our prior conversations. I think it is a very dangerous lesson to teach a girl she has to include and be kind to everyone, instead of teaching her to be aware of when someone is not respecting her, no, and stepping out of the situation. I hope I don't have to explain in too much detail why I find this important. But to put it briefly, I was brought up with the include everyone mindset. No exceptions. It taught me to ignore my own comfort level, and as I became a young adult I became the victim of men who used my inability to say no to their advantage. It's a dangerous lesson, and no longer appropriate at that age. Thank you. OP. She emailed me back asking for a meeting in person with the principal. I'm preparing for that but wondering if my email was too harsh. AITA for my response to my daughter's teacher? Verdict, not the asshole. Relevant comments. OOP to a down-voted comment on why this is important. I feel like a better lesson for future life is that if you're in a group, i.e. workplace, where someone has done stuff to make you feel uncomfortable, it is okay to not want to work with them. It's okay to ask your boss to reassign you, or the other person, or to report harassment to HR, or even if HR and management don't address harassment to leave a job. Your safety is worth more than professionalism. I feel like the "that's just life, there isn't a way out of it" kind of attitude is dangerous because harassment doesn't have to be a part of life, and there is always a way out. I stayed at a job for way too long where my boss was harassing me, and I wish I had the lesson at that time of your safety and dignity is worth more than whatever they're paying you, find a new job ASAP. OOP to a deleted commenter on what the bully has done. What's he done to make them uncomfortable? When my daughter and her female friends were having girl talk, that they'd be embarrassed to have people overhear, nothing too embarrassing, just talking about kissing, which I guess is what passes as scandalous at that age. LOL, he hid near them and listened in for a while. He also chases a few of the girls around the playground even though they don't want to play that way, and keep yelling at him to stop it and leave them alone. Does he have friends? I'm not really sure, my daughter never said either way. She said she tries to keep away from him and not pay attention to what he's up to when she can help it, so I'm not sure she'd know. Considering they're a group of 5 girls and the teacher is calling out the daughter for being exclusive, I am inclined to think, without more info, that this kid may be an outcast. I kind of get snooty girl vibes from this, but I could be totally off the mark. My daughter really isn't that type. If anything, I think she struggles with standing up for herself without feeling bad about it afterwards. I'm trying to teach her it's not something to feel guilty about. Also, a serious question for you. What about my post gave the impression that my daughter was unreasonable or mean? It is a very concerning trend when I see that anytime a girl stands up for her boundaries, there's some voice going, oh, but did she go too far? Was she really justified? Seriously, I'm curious, can you reflect on what made you ask that? And really consider how dangerous a message that can be if you ask the same thing around young women in your life? Unless you are a doormat, you already know you weren't the asshole. Now, be very firm that you want that boy as far as possible of your daughter and that you will personally sue the school and the teacher if something ever happens. Oop. Haha, as much as I try to teach my daughter about boundaries, it's still something I struggle with feeling guilty about sometimes. Hard to unlearn those wrong lessons. Which is honestly why I want to teach her differently from a young age, so she doesn't grow up with that baggage. LOL. If you enjoy Reddit stories, hit the like button and subscribe. Now, let's jump right into today's story. OOP updated, 2 days later. Edit to update. I reached out to the parents of the other 4 girls in the class who were involved, and we all coordinated to go speak to the school administration together. They had similar views, thinking it was inappropriate for the school to expect the girls work with someone who they're not comfortable with, and frustrated the teacher didn't do more to deal with the issues during recess that made the girls uncomfortable to start with. I ended up asking the school if we could reschedule the meeting to a time all the involved families could make, and we ended up meeting this afternoon along with my husband, another couple, 2 mothers, and a father, along with the teacher and principal. We all presented a united front asking for the following. The school does training for the teachers on trauma-informed teaching methods and the dangers of expecting young women to go against their best judgment of their own boundaries to be nice. Instead of include everyone, the kids should be allowed to respectfully set boundaries and taught to respect each other's boundaries. The school addresses harassment in class or at recess and doesn't enable it to continue. We went to talk, and I think it went a lot better having all the parents join instead of if I'd gone alone. The teacher and principal apologized and the principal agreed to look for resources on how to better navigate the balance between being inclusive and not forcing kids into including someone who is crossing a line with them. Thanks a lot for all the amazing advice in the comments. I cannot believe how much this blew up and I'm so grateful to everyone who replied with advice and support. And honestly was getting pretty emotional hearing how the lessons I'm trying to teach my little one resonated with other women, whether they're moms too, or have been through some of the same struggles I have. Comments.
God, I wish I had OOP as a parent growing up. I had to literally punch boys in elementary school for touching and kissing me when I already said no. Was always told that I needed to let them down gently, or I needed to be nice and include people. I once got kicked off the school bus in 8th grade for a week because I slapped a boy who pawed my chest while insisting I'm a prostitute and just needed to name my price. Really fucked up part is the bus driver set it up, gave us assigned seats, forcing me to sit between the window and that boy. I told the driver why I didn't want to sit with him and was given the choice to walk home if I didn't like it. Lived miles outside the town limits and didn't have reliable parents. I had a similar experience in 1987 when I was in 2nd grade. Assigned seats on the bus, driver put me with a 5th grade boy. He kept touching me in inappropriate places. I begged him to stop repeatedly. I told the bus driver and asked for a new seat. She refused. I told my teacher. She said she couldn't do anything about what happens on the bus. I told my mom how I had told the driver and my teacher, and no one would make him stop. Mom told me, "Your dad taught you how to defend yourself. The next time he touches you, punch him." So, the next morning when he went to touch me again, I hauled back and punched his stomach as hard as my little arms could. Then, wanting to make sure he got the message, I swung again. He was hunched over from the first punch, and I ended up breaking his glasses. The school wanted to suspend me from the bus. My mom threw out the threat of a lawsuit for the driver and school failing to protect me from sexual assault. Then, she demanded the principal speak with my teacher and driver to confirm they had both been informed of what was happening. I was not punished, while boy ended up suspended from the bus for the year, and his family moved out of the school system before the next school year. Honestly, showing up with a bunch of other parents sharing the same complaints was such a boss move on OOP's part. I have no doubts the principal and teacher were going to try and lecture OOP on being inclusive and letting her daughter become a bully, only to have the tables turned on them when a whole crowd turned up. A part of me legitimately wonders if the teacher and principal were older folks who think that quiet, obedient girls can also act as babysitters for the rowdier boys. Or he's only bothering you 'cause he likes you. The thing is, if that kid is really trying to make a friendly connection, he has no clue how to go about it. Social skills training would probably help him do that. Just include everyone probably won't.
My brother-in-law claims he's been dating the same woman for 10 years. She says they haven't spoken in 10 years. My brother-in-law is in his late 30s and has been, supposedly, dating the same girl for 10 years. Let's call her Brady. His name is Jim. They met when he was a student teacher, so he was an adult and she was still in high school. She is my age, maybe a year younger, probably 28. Jim's brother Dylan and Brady graduated together, and they did not get along primarily because she ratted Dylan out for something that he claims he did not do. He's a liar sometimes, so how reliable that is. Fast forward to now. I have never met Brady. I've been with my husband Bork, Jim's brother, since 2018. Jim has never brought Brady to family reunions, holidays, our wedding, etc. There's always been an excuse. Also note that Jim does not have social media. Jim talks about Brady's niece and nephew all the time, knows all the details about them, has shown us pictures, etc. Sometimes Jim can't come to family events because he says he with Brady. My mother-in-law has even said she's heard him talk to her on the phone, shown her pictures, heard him call her sweetie, and says that she's on his phone plan. He also been able to relate some issues with her that I've had issues with, like my gut health and anxiety and whatnot. He's talked about where she works, what she does, etc. He's talked about moving closer to her. She lives in an hour and a half from us. Additionally, a few years ago we saw Brady's sister and their kids, that he talks about to us all the time, at a pumpkin patch, and Jim bolted the other way. Which was weird since that is her sister and he talked so highly of her and her kids. This is where it gets weird. In October of last year my husband found a picture on Facebook of a firefighter and Brady kissing at a Halloween party, and since Jim doesn't have social media my husband sent it to Jim. Jim thanked him and was sad for about 5 months. Jim then proceeded to begin talking about Brady again this last month. At work he's been telling people, we work in the same building, that they've been together 10 years. Also, me and my husband found out last year that Brady is their third cousin on our dad's side. LOL. So a few weeks ago I decided to follow Brady on Instagram and invite her to my son's birthday as well as introduce myself since, well, I had never met her. I notice immediately that there are no pictures of her and Jim and she isn't shy of posting. She replied and said that she has not talked to Jim in 10 years. Jim immediately messages me and tells me not to talk to Brady and thanked me for thinking of her though and that they were working through some things. I messaged Brady back and said, LMFAO I'm so sorry I thought y'all were together, he talks about you all the time. Jim immediately texts me again and tells me to block her. She messages me back and said, that's okay, what does he say about me? And I told her just general things about her niece and nephew since they're the same age as our kids, her health and how it related to mine, and how we have similar nicknames from Jim and my husband. She left me on read. Jim came by my office at work the next day and said that he was sorry for that interaction I had with her, not sure if he knows she told me they hadn't talked in 10 years, and that she was so overwhelmed by the kind gesture of me reaching out that she didn't know how to react. He said her mom called and said she was so upset and that she might have to go console Brady. Jim seemed nervous during the whole conversation with me in person. He wouldn't make eye contact and kept seeming like he was searching for words during that whole interaction. He then told my husband something completely different. Jim told him that she was overwhelmed by me messaging her. Doesn't explain why she told me it's been 10 years since Jim and her have talked. Just left the conversation at that. Since then, Jim has been distant from the family. But he did mention her randomly the other day, very specific detail about her dog. I did message her cousin, which I'm friends with her friend, and she was flabbergasted by all of this, saying that Brady has brought several guys home and to family functions over the last 10 years and that she even had one recently and that she hasn't mentioned Jim since they were supposedly secretly dating when she was underage and he was an adult, student teaching at her school. What is going on here? My husband doesn't want to touch this issue with a 10-foot stick because the thought of his brother being insane is maddening to him. This entire family has some loose screws. My husband is the only one that seems normal. What are your thoughts? Are there any other subreddits I can cross-post to? Any theories? Any thoughts from outsiders are welcome, LOL. I feel like this is a Dateline episode. And I know I'm not nosy, I'm just too far deep into this to back off because if my brother-in-law is a sociopath I'd love to know? Commenter 1. Maybe her mom has another account and pretends to be her? But if he says he sees her in person, then maybe he is a creepy stalker or has had some sort of delusional breakdown. Something isn't right here. Maybe he is gay or has some other secret and doesn't want you to know, so he made up a girlfriend. Oop. I do think since he claimed she's on his phone plan that the mom has been pretending to be Brady this whole time, and since he may be desperate and so obsessed with her he may be okay not ever seeing her. And she just strings him along. Idk. Update, same day. Well, y'all were right. It somehow got even weirder. I reached back out to Brady one last time because I honestly felt bad for dragging her into this. I just wanted to make sure she was okay and that this wasn't some blink twice if you need help situation. She basically said, no, I wasn't overwhelmed. I was just really confused why he's still talking about me. She told me she has had zero contact with Jim in about 10 years and has absolutely no intention of ever speaking to him again. She said she was genuinely creeped out that he knows so much about her life. She also told me she wasn't upset with me at all. She was uncomfortable because of him. Then I asked her how Jim could possibly know all these insanely specific details about her life. I'm talking about her nieces and nephews, her dog, her old job, her health issues, and the fact that he has told all of us they're still dating, that she's on his phone plan, and that he's literally pretended to talk to her on the phone in front of his own family. To that, she said, WTF? None of that is true. I don't even have his phone number. Apparently the only explanation she could come up with was maybe her mom had been talking to Jim over the years. So she called her mom right after I messaged her that, which I guess explains why he knew so fast, and her mom admitted they've stayed in touch and just talk about life. Which, what? Brady said she was completely blindsided by that and got into a huge argument with her mom because she feels like her privacy has been totally violated. I mentioned that Jim had recently brought up her dog and some random story about one of her friends, literally the other day, accidentally feeding him grapes. Brady said, yeah, that actually happened. But I only told my family and close friends about that. She asked me to please let her know if Jim keeps talking about her because she wants to know if this continues. At this point I honestly don't know what to think. I will share though that after the first interaction with her when we were all talking about it as a family, me, husband, mother-in-law, and Dullen, apparently her mom, according to my mother-in-law, is kinda crazy. I didn't believe it at first. BC it didn't make sense, but apparently she's obsessed with her daughters and posts all of their pictures that she posts, which I guess explains where Jim has been getting the pictures, from the mom. And we all joke that maybe Jim is being catfished by the mom, but I think maybe the mom is so obsessed with her daughters she shares everything with everyone, and maybe Jim has taken this information and created a fake relationship with her? And casually asks for pictures and updates on the family? Idk. I'm confused and tired. Commenter 2. So wait, is Jim secretly with Brandy's mom? Oop. That's my theory. Commenter 2. Oh man. Is Brandy's mom married? Oop. Yes, but not sure if it's happily married or just married, lol. Comments.
My brain can't seem to handle this. Why are we glossing over the part where the man basically instantly knew that she'd been messaged? What sort of access does he have? Yeah, I picked up on that and assumed he had her login info on a burner device and sees the messages or something. That's what I assumed. OOP said Jim would text her immediately after she messaged Brady, making me think he was seeing the messages. Chilling. This is driving me crazy. I get taking a second to be like, what do you mean, your husband BORK? But like, the fact that Jim, why does he get a normal name, seemed to know OOP was communicating with Brady as they were communicating is insane and scary. Did he keylog her somehow?
Thanks for watching my video. Please like it and subscribe, and stay tuned for more stories.